Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're going to demystify what is absolutely the single most powerful yet completely invisible financial force in human history. We've all heard the advice, right? That compounding is the ultimate key to building wealth. But honestly, why does it feel so mythical to the average person? Why does doing the right thing with your money often feel so, well, remarkably unrewarding? Today we're going to look at the exact mathematical moment when patience turns into pure financial power and why understanding this one single concept is going to change how you look at your money forever.
So picture this. You're sitting on your couch on a random Sunday afternoon, scrolling through your phone, and you decide to check your investment app. You've been responsible. You've been diligently putting in, let's say, $300 a month for the last year and a half. You open the app and you see a balance of right around $4,200. Yeah. We have all felt that vague, kind of hollow feeling staring at a number like this. There's zero excitement, no real sense of massive progress. You look at it and you literally feel almost nothing at all.
And, it's perfectly natural to look at that really modest growth and ask yourself, is this even working? You start wondering if the whole invest and wait concept is just this elaborate myth. Did I pick the wrong funds? Is this just some slow, pointless exercise in delayed gratification that never actually pays off? But listen, here's the profound secret we're unpacking today. Compounding doesn't actually fail most people. The timeline is what fails most people. The problem isn't the math. It's that we quit right before the math actually gets exciting.
Moving on to Section 1, the illusion of slow progress and early compounding.
To really understand why the math feels so incredibly anticlimactic early on, I want you to think of investing exactly like building a snowball at the very top of a huge hill. At first, you're doing all the freezing manual work with your own two hands. The hill? It isn't doing a single thing for you yet. Yes, your account is growing, but it's growing almost entirely because of your own manual out-of-pocket contributions. The core issue here is that nobody tells you exactly how long you have to stand there freezing your hands off, packing snow. And because of that unknown, the overwhelming majority of people get bored. They quit right before gravity takes over, completely missing out on that magical moment when physics finally starts doing the heavy lifting for them.
All right, Section 2, the wealth inflection point, when wealth truly multiplies.
Hearing about compounding conceptually is one thing, but visually tracking when it actually becomes powerful, that's entirely different. Once you see the actual math, I promise you cannot unsee it. So let's follow a hypothetical investor. We'll call her Mir. She starts investing a standard $500 a month into a broad index fund at age 25, averaging a pretty standard 10% annual return. We're going to track her journey across 30 years to pinpoint exactly when the math stops feeling like a chore and starts acting like an absolute machine.
Let's break down the numbers. In year 1, Mir has put in $6,000 of her own money. And the market has only given her $300. It's completely underwhelming, right? Even jumping ahead to year 5, she's contributed $30,000, and the market has added just $8,000. She is clearly still doing all the heavy lifting herself. But wait, look over at year 20. Mir has contributed $120,000, but her account is worth roughly $340,000. The market has literally handed her $220,000 that she didn't have to work for. Think about that. For every dollar she manually contributed, compounding just handed her back nearly 3.
And this brings us to the dramatic climax at year 30. Look at this. Mally manually put in $180,000 of her own cash over 3 decades. But look at that massive growth right next to it. The machine generated over $800,000 purely through time and patience. That is roughly $1 million in total, with the vast, overwhelming majority generated simply by leaving things alone and letting the hill do the work. She didn't hustle for that $800,000. Time did.
So the absolutely crucial question we have to ask here is, when exactly did the hill take over from her hands? When did compounding become the primary engine driving her wealth? Well, the answer is that it happens quietly, usually somewhere right between years 12 and 15. That right there is the inflection point. That is the exact mathematical moment when your annual returns from compound growth actually start to exceed your manual out-of-pocket contributions. It's not this big, loud, dramatic alarm. It's just a quiet realization that a skipped contribution didn't really matter because the market gave you more money that year than you gave it. The machine has completely flipped.
Moving to Section 3, surviving the boring years and learning to trust the math.
Now, the math we just looked at is undeniably awesome, but the real challenge? It's figuring out how to actually survive the mind-numbing boredom of those early years before that magical inflection point ever arrives.
Because let's be real, if your ultimate goal is $1 million, measuring your daily progress in raw, slow-moving dollars will emotionally crush you. The gap between your current balance and your long-term goal is just way too large. You'll feel mathematically and emotionally like you're failing. And this is exactly why a complete psychological shift is required. As this quote perfectly captures, you have to trust the process rather than tracking the outcome. In those early years, you have absolutely zero control over the market outcome, but you have total 100% control over your process.
So, what does this look like? Instead of obsessing over the overall size of your snowball, you need to focus entirely on measuring the act of packing the snow. Track your contribution rate. Track your consistency. Celebrate the number of consecutive months you've successfully invested without skipping a beat. Because every single month you pack that snow is a month the snowball gets slightly larger and slightly closer to that tipping point where the hill finally takes over.
Oh, and a super quick but absolutely vital warning regarding those early, boring years: market downturns. The scariest thing in the early years isn't actually the market crash itself. Temporary declines are essentially just background noise in the grand scheme of things. No, the true danger is the emotional panic that causes you to do the one thing that will literally destroy your progress: selling. Selling locks in your losses and completely breaks your compounding chain. Everything we just looked at, Mir's $800,000 in gains, that beautiful inflection point, it all depends entirely on staying in the market.
Section 4. Beyond finances. The universal law of compounding.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating about all this is that this invisible engine applies to so much more than just your financial portfolio. The math of compounding is truly a universal law of effort. Whether you're consistently writing content for an audience, building up a professional network, or just suffering through those wildly unrewarding first few months of learning a new language, the exact same rules apply. You put in massive effort for tiny, almost imperceptible returns early on. But those foundation years, they inevitably lead to an explosion of accelerated returns. Suddenly, having conversations in that new language gets easier faster than you're even studying. The compounding of your prior effort takes over, and the outcome radically outpaces your daily input. It's like a superpower.
Let's wrap it up with Section 5, turning on the machine, the playbook.
Okay, so how do we actually operationalize this knowledge? Well, here's the exact behavioral playbook to make sure you actually benefit from all this math. Step 1. Automate your investing. Seriously, automate those boring years so you aren't constantly tempted to check your balances or tinker with your allocations. Set it and forget it. Step 2. Strictly protect your time horizon. Treat time like it's your absolute most valuable asset, because it is, by not cashing out when things get temporarily scary. And step 3, if you've been investing for a decade or so, start keeping your eyes peeled. Notice the shift. Watch for that beautiful, quiet moment when your annual returns finally outpace your annual contributions. It is incredibly satisfying.
Now, I do want to address something incredibly important before we finish. If you're maybe in your 40s or 50s right now and you're feeling that familiar anxiety because you think, oh, I started way too late, hear this. The math is just compressed. That's all. Yes, you will definitely need to be more aggressive with your snowpacking, but that inflection point, it will still come. Starting late compresses the timeline for sure, but remember this absolute truth. Not starting at all is simply worse. Always.
The compounding machine is intensely real, folks. It isn't folklore, it's not magic, and it definitely doesn't just happen for the lucky ones. It relentlessly works day after day, month after month, but it absolutely demands time to turn on. So as we close out this explainer, the only vital question left is this: do you trust the machine enough to stay the course through the boring years? Do you have the necessary patience to just stand there, pack the snow, and wait for the hill to finally take over? Think about that the next time you feel uninspired checking your balance.